My name is Sadie Mercer. I am 32 years old and I am standing in the doorway of what used to be my bedroom, holding a hospital discharge bag in one hand and a set of keys that apparently no longer matter in the other. The walls are lavender. They were sage green 5 days ago. The duvet, the linen duvet I brought back from a trip to Portland, the one I saved for because it cost more than I wanted to spend but less than I deserved, is gone. In its place is a polyester comforter with a floral print I have never seen before. There are candles on the nightstand. Not my candles, not my nightstand arrangement. There is a curling iron plugged in next to the mirror. I do not own a curling iron. On the dresser, my dresser, the mid-century walnut piece I refinished by hand the summer before my wedding, there are bottles of perfume, a jewelry stand with earrings I do not recognize, and a framed photo of my husband and his sister at a barbecue from 2 years ago. My wedding photo, the one that sat in that exact spot for 3.5 years, is not there. I check behind the jewelry stand. I check the drawer. It is not anywhere in the room. I turn around. My husband Grant is standing in the hallway with his arms crossed, not at his sides. Crossed. And beside him, leaning against the wall like she lives here, because apparently she does now, is his sister, Lorraine Howell, holding a mug of tea in one of my ceramic cups, wearing my bathrobe. Grant looks at me the way you look at someone who is making a scene at a restaurant. Not with concern, not with guilt, with embarrassment. Sadie, before you start, she needed somewhere to go. You were in the hospital. I made a judgment call. I had been out of surgery for 4 days. I had 17 staples in my abdomen. I could not stand up straight without holding the wall, and I came home to find that my sister-in-law had been moved into my bedroom, my belongings had been boxed into the garage, and my husband's primary concern was that I not raise my voice about it. I stood there for 6 seconds. I counted them. 6 seconds of looking at the lavender walls, the floral comforter, the curling iron, and the framed barbecue photo. 6 seconds of understanding something that had taken me 3.5 years to see. Before I tell you what happened after that moment in the hallway, tell me what time it is where you are. Where are you watching from? What's the weather like there? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. Drop it in the comments. Because what I am about to tell you is the story of how a woman who could barely walk upright reclaimed every square foot of her own home, and everything she lost in the process. I met Grant Howell at a friend's housewarming party in the fall of 2019. He was kind in a way that felt effortless. He remembered what people drank. He asked follow-up questions. He held doors without performing it. I was 25, working as a lease administrator for a commercial real estate firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I had just signed the lease on a 2-bedroom apartment on East Tremont Avenue, the first place that was entirely mine. I had been renting rooms and splitting leases since I was 19. That apartment was the first door I could lock, knowing no one else had a claim to it. We dated for 2 years. Grant proposed in the kitchen of that apartment while I was making pasta. It was not grand. It was not public. It was perfect. We married in October 2021 at the courthouse, followed by a small dinner at a restaurant downtown. 12 people, a 3-course meal, a cake from a bakery on East Boulevard that cost $210. Grant moved into my apartment. He did not add his name to the lease. I asked about it once, casually, and he said it was simpler to leave things as they were. He said it did not matter whose name was on the paper because we were a team. I believed that. I wanted to believe that. And then there was Lorraine. Lorraine Howell was 4 years older than Grant. She had worked at a succession of jobs: dental receptionist, retail manager, social media coordinator for a local gym, assistant at a dog grooming salon, and had left every one of them within 8 months. She described each departure as a principled decision. The dentist was rude. The store manager was incompetent. The gym owner was threatened by her ideas. The grooming salon had toxic energy. Grant repeated each of these explanations to me, as though they were established facts, and not a rotating set of justifications for the same pattern. The first time Lorraine stayed with us was 3 months after the wedding, January 2022. She had broken up with her boyfriend and needed a few nights to figure out her next move. She stayed for 6 weeks. During that time, she used my shampoo without replacing it, left dishes in the sink overnight, played music from a Bluetooth speaker at 11 on weeknights, and told Grant that I had been cold to her when I asked her to replace the bath towels she had taken from the linen closet and used as beach towels at a lake trip I was not invited to. Grant pulled me aside that evening and told me Lorraine was going through a difficult time, and I should try harder to make her feel welcome. I tried harder. I always tried harder. That was the pattern, and I did not see it yet, because the pattern was dressed up as family loyalty. The second stay was 8 months later, September 2022. Lorraine had been let go from the gym job and could not cover her rent. Grant lent her $3,200 from our joint savings without telling me. I found the Zelle transfer on a Saturday morning when I was reconciling our bank statements. The transaction was labeled Lore, Emergency. When I asked him about it, his face did not change. He said it was an emergency and she would pay it back. When I asked when, he said I was keeping score. I was not keeping score. I was noticing that the score always favored one team, and the referee was my husband. Lorraine did not pay it back. She sent $200 in March, which Grant described as proof she's trying. That was the last payment. The third stay came in August 2023. It lasted 2 weeks, though it felt longer. Lorraine had a falling out with her roommate over utility bills. During that visit, I came home early from work one afternoon and found her sitting at my desk in my home office, on a video call. She had repositioned both of my monitors to face the window for better lighting. My files had been moved to the floor. My planner was closed and pushed to the side. When I stood in the doorway, she held up one finger and mouthed, "1 sec," like I was the interruption, like it was her office, her desk, her apartment. I told Grant that evening that Lorraine could not stay with us again without a conversation and a clear timeline. He agreed immediately. He said, "You're right. I'll talk to her. I'll set boundaries." He said the word boundaries, like someone who had just learned it from a podcast. He said it the way you say a word when you want credit for knowing it, but have no intention of enforcing it. He did not talk to her. My best friend Nadia Reyes told me something that year that I did not want to hear. We were sitting in her car outside a restaurant, and she turned to me and said, "Sadie, every time Lorraine has a crisis, you lose something. Space, money, peace, your own shampoo, your own desk." And Grant's response is always the same. He asks you to be smaller so Lorraine can be more comfortable. That is not loyalty. That is allocation. I told Nadia she was being dramatic. I told her Grant was just trying to take care of his sister. Nadia did not argue. She just looked at me the way people look at you when they know you will eventually arrive at the truth they already see, and they are willing to wait. In January 2024, Lorraine moved to a new apartment across town. A 1-bedroom on Remount Road. She lasted 5 months. By June, she was calling Grant twice a week, telling him she could not afford her lease and was exploring options. I did not know what those options were. I did not know they included me being replaced in my own bedroom. I did not know that Grant had already decided the solution to Lorraine's housing problem was to subtract me from mine. My surgery was not planned. On a Tuesday morning in late June 2024, I collapsed at my desk at work. The pain started in my lower right side and spread across my abdomen within minutes. A coworker called 911. I was taken by ambulance to Atrium Health Mercy, where an ultrasound revealed a ruptured ovarian cyst complicated by internal bleeding. I was in surgery within 2 hours. The procedure lasted 3 hours. I woke up with 17 staples, a drain tube, and a morphine drip that made the ceiling swim. Grant visited that night. He stayed for an hour. He held my hand. He said he was worried. He brought me a water bottle from the vending machine because the hospital cups were too small. The next day, he did not come. He texted that he had a long day at work. The day after that, he came for 40 minutes. He sat in the chair beside my bed and scrolled his phone while I drifted in and out of sleep. On the 4th day, I asked him if everything was okay at home. He said, "Yeah, fine, just been busy." On the 5th day, the day I was discharged, he said he could not pick me up because he was tied up with something at the apartment. I took an Uber home from the hospital. I carried my own discharge bag. I walked up the stairs holding the railing with both hands because each step sent a ripple of pain through my abdomen. I unlocked the front door with my key and walked into a home I did not recognize. The living room had been rearranged completely. The couch was against a different wall. My rug, a hand-knotted Moroccan piece I had bought at an estate sale in Waxhaw for $400 and had professionally cleaned twice, was gone. In its place was a synthetic gray runner I had never seen before. The bookshelves had been reorganized. My books were gone. In their place were candles in matching holders, decorative trays, succulents in identical white pots, and a set of coffee table books about interior design that I had never purchased. The art above the fireplace, a limited edition print from a gallery in Asheville that I had saved for and framed myself, had been replaced with a generic canvas of a sunset that still had a price sticker on the back. I checked. It cost $34.99 from a home decor chain. I walked to the bedroom. I have already told you what I found there. I walked to the garage, stacked against the wall in black trash bags, the heavy-duty kind you use for yard waste. I found my belongings. My clothes, still on hangers, crammed into bags with the hangers bent sideways. My books in 3 bags, the spines creased. My wedding photo, the glass cracked where something had been set on top of it. My linen duvet folded sloppily and stuffed into a bag with shoes piled on it. My jewelry box was there, open, balanced on top of a bag of coats. Several pieces were missing. A gold bracelet my grandmother had given me on my 18th birthday, a pair of pearl earrings I had bought in Savannah, and a silver pendant Nadia had given me for my 30th. I went back inside. I lowered myself onto the couch that was now positioned where Lorraine wanted it, and I asked Grant to explain. He sat across from me. Lorraine stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, holding her mug, close enough to hear every word but positioned to seem uninvolved. Grant's explanation came out rehearsed, practiced, delivered with the cadence of a man who had prepared for this conversation and decided in advance that it was unreasonable. Lorraine lost her apartment. She was going to be on the street. You were in the hospital, and I didn't want to stress you with decisions. She needed a proper room. The guest room doesn't have a closet, and the light is bad. So we moved some things around to make space. It's temporary. We were going to organize your stuff this weekend. You moved my things into trash bags in the garage, I said. We ran out of boxes. You painted the bedroom lavender. Lorraine wanted to feel settled. Change helps her anxiety. It's a coping mechanism. Where am I supposed to sleep, Grant? He paused. He glanced toward the kitchen. Then he said the sentence that made everything that followed inevitable. He said, "The guest room is fine for now, Sadie. You're overreacting. You're making this into something it doesn't need to be." I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not throw anything. I stood up slowly, walked to the guest room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the twin mattress, the bed I had bought for guests who visited twice a year, and I called Nadia. What Nadia told me made the room go still. She said she had seen Lorraine's social media posts from 2 days before my discharge. Lorraine had posted 3 photos of the apartment, my apartment, with the caption, "Finally settling into my new place. Fresh start energy." The photos showed the living room with her decor, the bedroom with the lavender walls, and the kitchen with a new set of canisters on the counter. She had tagged Grant in every photo. She had not mentioned me. In the comments, a mutual acquaintance named Brittany had asked, "Wait, where's Sadie?" Lorraine's reply, "She moved out a while ago. Grant's doing great though." 41 people had liked the post. I confronted Grant that evening. I showed him the screenshots. He did not deny seeing the post. He said, "She didn't mean it like that. She was just being careless with her words. You know how she is with social media." I asked if he had corrected it, if he had commented, or called her, or texted a single person to say that his wife who had 17 staples in her body and could not stand up without leaning on a wall, had not moved out, was not gone, was in fact still very much alive, and legally tied to the apartment his sister was now claiming as her own. He had not. That was Tuesday. On Wednesday, I pulled our joint bank account statements. In the 10 days I had been either in surgery, in recovery, or drugged on morphine, Grant had made 4 Zelle transfers to Lorraine totaling $4,600. The first was $1,800, labeled rent deposit. The second was $1,200, labeled furniture. The third was $900, labeled moving help. The fourth was $700, with no label at all. On Thursday, I went back to what used to be my bedroom, while Lorraine was in the shower. I opened the closet. Inside was a full wardrobe. Not a suitcase, not a duffel bag, a wardrobe. Blouses on hangers, shoes on the floor in a rack she had brought from her old apartment, a hamper. On the shelf above the hanging rod, I found a manila folder. Inside the folder were 6 printed apartment listings. They were not for Lorraine. They were for me. Studios and 1-bedrooms within 10 minutes of my office, all under $1,100 a month. One of them, a 480-square-foot studio on Commonwealth Avenue, had a sticky note in Grant's handwriting, close to her office. Utilities included. She could move in Sept 1. He was not making room for his sister temporarily. He was building a permanent arrangement. And the variable he intended to remove from the equation was me, out of my own home, the apartment I had leased 2 years before I ever met him, the first place that had ever been entirely mine. I closed the folder. I placed it back exactly where I found it. I photographed every page. I walked to the guest room. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the twin bed, and I began making a list. The next morning, I called an attorney named Janelle Okafor, a family and tenant law specialist Nadia had used during a landlord dispute 2 years prior. I described my situation in full. Janelle listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question that mattered more than all the others combined. Whose name is on the lease? Mine, I said. Only mine. It has been since 2019. Janelle explained the law with the kind of calm precision I needed to hear. In North Carolina, a leaseholder has the exclusive right to determine who resides in the unit, subject to the terms of the lease. Grant was an occupant, not a co-leaseholder, not a co-signer, not listed on the lease in any capacity. Lorraine was an unauthorized occupant. She had no tenancy rights, no lease agreement, no written permission from the property management company, and no legal standing. If I wanted both of them out, I could provide written notice consistent with the lease terms. But Janelle also said something I needed to hear. She said if I acted emotionally, if I screamed, if I changed the locks while they were inside, if I threw Lorraine's belongings onto the lawn, I would create a legal complication for myself. Document everything, she said. Photograph it, screenshot it, move slowly. Let them believe you have accepted the arrangement. And when the paperwork is ready, deliver it clean. I followed that advice like a manual. Over the next 6 days, while Grant went to work and Lorraine rearranged my kitchen cabinets and pinned new curtain samples to the living room windows, I built a case. I photographed every room from multiple angles. I saved every text message, Grant's, Lorraine's, and the ones between Grant and his mother that he left open on the iPad we shared. I screenshotted Lorraine's social media posts, the comments, the responses, and Brittany's question with Lorraine's reply. I pulled the bank statements showing the $4,600 in transfers. I photographed the folder of apartment listings, each page individually, including the sticky note. I photographed the trash bags in the garage. I photographed the missing spaces in my jewelry box where 3 pieces should have been. I contacted my landlord, Trident Realty Group, the property management company that held the lease. I submitted a written inquiry, informing them that an unauthorized occupant had been moved into my unit without my consent or knowledge while I was hospitalized. I requested written confirmation that only my name appeared on the lease and that no additional occupant approval had been filed. They responded within 24 hours. The certified letter confirmed that Sadie Mercer was the sole leaseholder and that any additional occupants required written approval from both the leaseholder and Trident Realty. No such approval had been requested or granted for Grant Howell or Lorraine Howell. I filed an inventory claim for the missing jewelry, 3 pieces totaling $1,100 in appraised value. I opened a new individual checking account at a separate institution. I moved my direct deposit. I transferred my share of the joint savings, $7,400, into the new account. I did not touch Grant's portion. I did not take $1 more than what was mine. I reserved a date with a local moving company to deliver storage containers. And through all of this, I said nothing. I slept in the guest room. I ate meals at the kitchen table quietly. I answered Grant's questions with short, clear sentences that gave him nothing to argue with. When Lorraine asked me if I wanted to help pick out new curtains for the living room, I smiled and said, "You go ahead, you have a good eye." She did not hear the sentence underneath that one. On the 6th day, Janelle prepared 2 documents. The first was a formal written notice to Grant Howell, informing him that he was being asked to vacate the premises at 412 East Tremont Avenue, Unit 3B, within 30 days, as permitted under the terms of the lease, due to the unauthorized introduction of an additional occupant without leaseholder consent, the unauthorized disposal and relocation of the leaseholder's personal property, and the public misrepresentation of the leaseholder's residential status. The second was a separate notice to Lorraine Howell, informing her that she was an unauthorized occupant with no legal right to reside in the unit, and that she was required to vacate within 7 days. I signed both documents on a Thursday afternoon, while sitting at a corner table in a cafe on South Boulevard. I ordered a cappuccino and a scone. I watched people walk past on the sidewalk. I signed my name twice, sealed 2 envelopes, and felt something shift behind my sternum. Not anger, not relief. Clarity. The kind that arrives when you stop asking someone to see you and start seeing yourself instead. The notices were delivered on Friday at 4 p.m. by a process server Janelle had arranged. I was not at the apartment. I was at Nadia's place across town, sitting on her balcony with my feet up on a cushion because my incision still ached when I sat too long. We were eating pad see ew from the Thai restaurant on Central Avenue and watching the sun drop behind the trees. My phone was on the table between us, face up. Grant called 11 minutes after the notices were delivered. I let it ring. He called again 30 seconds later. I let that one ring too. On the 3rd call, I answered. His voice was not concerned. It was sharp, offended, as though he had been handed something inappropriate. "Sadie, what the hell is this? You're having us served? In our own house?" "It is my apartment," I said. "My lease, my name. You have known that since the day you moved in. This is insane. You cannot kick me out of my own home because you're upset about a bedroom." "I am not upset about a bedroom, Grant. I am upset that you moved my belongings into trash bags while I was recovering from surgery, installed your sister in my room, spent $4,600 of our savings furnishing her stay, printed apartment listings so you could relocate me out of my own home, and sat quietly while she told 41 people on the internet that I no longer lived here." There was silence on the line. 4 full seconds. Then Grant said, "Where did you find that folder?" That was the question he chose. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I should not have done that." Not, "Let me come to you so we can talk." He wanted to know how I found the evidence. He wanted to know which part of his plan had a gap. That question told me everything I had not yet fully accepted about the man I married. "You have 30 days, Grant. Lorraine has 7. The paperwork is clear." I hung up. Nadia handed me a spring roll without saying a word. I ate it. It was still warm. Over the next 48 hours, I received 23 text messages from Grant and 14 from Lorraine. Grant's messages followed a pattern I now recognized as a cycle, the same one he used every time I raised a concern about his sister. First came anger. "You are out of your mind. This is our home." Then negotiation. "Let's sit down and talk about this like adults. We can find a solution." Then guilt. I thought marriage meant working through things together, not serving legal papers on your own husband. Then threat. "My mother is going to hear about this, and she is going to be devastated." Lorraine's messages were less structured and more revealing. She called me ungrateful. She called me jealous. She said I had always resented her relationship with Grant, and that this was finally showing who you really are. She said I was punishing a woman for needing help. She said I was the reason Grant was stressed, that I had never been warm enough, that I did not understand what family meant. I did not respond to a single message. Not one. On Monday, 3 days after the notices, Nadia called me during my lunch break. Lorraine had posted again. The caption read, "Some people would rather destroy a family than share a little space. Praying for healing for everyone involved." It had 47 likes. Grant's mother had commented a heart emoji, and the words, "Praying for you, sweetheart." A woman I did not know had commented, Stay strong, Queen. Some wives can't handle a close sibling bond. I screenshotted all of it. On Tuesday, Janelle called with news I had not expected, but probably should have. Grant had contacted a lawyer of his own. His lawyer had reviewed the lease, the property management letter, and the notices. The lawyer confirmed what Janelle already knew. Grant had no legal claim to the apartment. He was not on the lease. He had not contributed to the security deposit in 2019. He had no cosigner agreement, no addendum, no written occupancy approval. The property management company had confirmed in writing that he was an occupant permitted by the leaseholder, not a tenant with independent rights. His lawyer advised him to comply with the notice and vacate within the time frame. But Lorraine did not comply. On day 5 of her 7-day notice, Lorraine went to a hardware store, bought a new deadbolt kit, and changed the lock on the front door of my apartment. She did this at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday while I was at work. When I came home that evening, carrying a bag of groceries in one arm and pressing my other hand against my incision because the stairs still hurt, my key did not turn. I stood in the hallway of my own building, outside my own door, holding a bag of produce, locked out of the apartment whose lease bore my name. I set the groceries on the floor. I called Janelle. Janelle called the police. 2 officers arrived within 30 minutes. I met them in the hallway. I showed them my lease. I showed them the certified letter from Trident Realty. I showed them the original notices to vacate. I showed them the text messages confirming Lorraine had received her notice. The officers knocked on the door. Lorraine did not answer for 3 minutes. When she finally opened it, she was wearing my bathrobe again. The officers explained, calmly, professionally, in front of 2 neighbors who had stepped into the hallway, that she had no legal right to change the locks on a unit she did not lease, and that doing so constituted unlawful interference with the leaseholder's right of access under North Carolina statute. Lorraine looked at the officers. Then she looked at me. Then she said, loud enough for both neighbors and the officer's body camera to record, "She is doing this because she is jealous of how close Grant and I are. She has always been threatened by our bond. This is not about a lease. This is about a woman who cannot handle her husband loving his sister." One of the officers looked at me. I did not react. I reached into my bag and handed him the folder, the printed apartment listings, the sticky note in Grant's handwriting, the bank transfers, the screenshots of Lorraine's posts, the photos of my belongings in trash bags. He looked through them for about 45 seconds. He handed them back. He turned to Lorraine and said, "Ma'am, you need to collect your personal belongings and vacate the premises tonight." Lorraine's final mistake came in the next 90 seconds. Instead of packing, she walked to the living room, picked up the ceramic vase she had placed on my coffee table, a vase that had replaced a framed photo of mine, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered across the floor and punched a hole through the drywall the size of a fist. Then she grabbed 2 of the decorative trays from the bookshelf and slammed them onto the hardwood, cracking one tray and gouging the floor. She was reaching for a third when the officers stepped forward and took hold of her arms. She was escorted from the building. She was issued a citation for criminal mischief and property damage. Grant arrived 20 minutes later. He parked in the lot and walked toward the building entrance, where he saw his sister sitting in the back of a patrol car. He stopped. He looked at the car. He looked up at the window of the apartment, my apartment, where I was standing behind the curtain, watching. He came to the door. I opened it. He stood in the hallway with his hands at his sides and said, "Sadie, please, this has gone too far. She is my sister." I said, "It went too far the moment you put my things in trash bags and started shopping for studios to relocate me. You just did not notice, because you were not the one being erased." I closed the door. I turned the new deadbolt, the one Lorraine had installed, the one that now locked from the inside, and I stood in the hallway of my own apartment, alone, in the quiet that followed. Grant moved out 17 days later. He took what was his clothes, his guitar, his books, a small television he had brought into the marriage, and a box of kitchen tools he said were gifts from his mother. He did not take the furniture. He did not take the dishes. He did not take the gray runner Lorraine had used to replace my rug, which I rolled up the day she was removed, and left in the hallway outside the apartment door like a discarded skin. I filed for divorce in August 2024. The proceedings were uncontested. We had no children, no shared real estate, no joint debts. The apartment was mine. The savings I had moved were mine. Grant's attorney reviewed the documentation Janelle had compiled, the lease, the property management letters, the bank transfers, the screenshots, the police report, and did not challenge a single item. The divorce was finalized in November. Lorraine's citation for criminal mischief resulted in a misdemeanor plea. She was ordered to pay $850 in restitution, $400 for the drywall repair, and $450 for the hardwood floor refinishing. She was also issued a formal trespass notice through Trident Realty, barring her from the property. My missing jewelry was never recovered. I filed a small claims case for the appraised value. The court awarded me $940. Lorraine paid in installments over 4 months, each one sent through Zelle with no message attached. In the weeks after Grant left, I repainted the bedroom. I chose the same sage green, but a shade darker, close enough to feel familiar, different enough to feel new. I bought a new duvet. Not the same one from Portland. That one belonged to a different version of this apartment. I reassembled the bookshelves with my books in the order I wanted them. I hung the Asheville print above the fireplace. I set the cracked wedding photo on the dresser, looked at it for a long time, and then placed it in a box in the closet. Not because I was angry, because it documented a promise made by 2 people, and one of them had already broken it long before the lavender paint dried. Nadia came over that first weekend, with wine and takeout from the same Thai place on Central Avenue. We sat on my couch, back in its original position, and ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then she set down her fork and said, "You know what the worst part is? In all of it, the texts, the voicemails, the arguments, he never once asked how your surgery went. Not once. He never asked if you were healing." She was right. I had not noticed it until she said it, but she was right. In 23 text messages, Grant had called me insane, ungrateful, dramatic, and cold. He had invoked his mother, his sister, and the concept of family. He had not asked about my staples. He had not asked about my recovery. He had not asked if I could climb the stairs without pain. Grant's mother called me in September. She told me I had destroyed her family. She said Lorraine had been going through a difficult period and deserved compassion. She said Grant was heartbroken and could barely function. She said I had taken the easy way out instead of doing the hard work of marriage. I listened. I let her finish. When she stopped talking, I said, "Mrs. Howell, your son moved my belongings into trash bags, gave my bedroom to his sister, spent $4,600 furnishing her stay, and printed apartment listings so he could relocate me out of my own home while I was recovering from emergency surgery. He did all of this in 5 days. If that is your family's definition of love, I understand now why Lorraine keeps losing places to live." She hung up without responding. In November, Grant sent me a long message. He said he had been reflecting. He said he understood now that he had handled things poorly. He said Lorraine had been his responsibility since they were teenagers, and he did not know how to separate that obligation from his marriage. He said he missed me. He said he missed the apartment, the pasta on Tuesday nights, the way I organized the bookshelves. He asked if we could meet for coffee. He said he wanted to talk about what happened with clear heads. I read the message twice. I noticed that the word sorry did not appear anywhere in it. He said he handled things poorly, but he did not say he was wrong. He said he understood now, but he did not describe what he understood. He said he missed me, but what he listed were the things I did for him, not who I was. He said he wanted to meet with clear heads, as though my head had been unclear when I exercised my legal rights to my own home. I did not respond. The apartment is quiet now. The walls are sage green. The bookshelves hold my books. The dresser holds my things. The duvet is linen. The door locks from the inside, and only one person has the key. Some people will reorganize your entire life to accommodate someone else's comfort, and then call you selfish when you refuse to disappear quietly. The lease was always in my name. The only question was whether I believed that mattered, and how long it would take me to stop asking permission to exist in my own home. So tell me honestly, If your partner moved your belongings into trash bags and gave your bedroom to someone else while you were in the hospital, would you have fought for every square foot? Or would you have walked away and started over somewhere new? Share your honest answer in the comments. Someone reading it may need permission to understand that reclaiming your own space is not an act of cruelty, it is a refusal to be erased.